Good evening, everyone. I am Mazi Ezoke. This evening, I have the rare privilege once more to have an erudite professor join me today. Many of you who may have seen videos coming out of New York may have seen him also among those that are standing outside the United Nations and in protest. I have this evening the opportunity to bring to Njenje Media TV Professor Offiong Offiong Aqua, so who is a person of interest and who agitates for an independent state of Akwa Ibom, or as they say, the Ibom Nation. Now, Professor, good evening once more for joining me.
Good evening, Mazi. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Prof, let's hit the ball rolling. Now, again, not many people until recently, when one of your video, I believe, went viral, when you were talking about the Ibom Nation.
Yes.
Before we get into the nitty-gritties of what is it that you are agitating for and your group as well,
yes,
may we know who you are, Prof?
Okay, so my name is Offiong Aqua, as you have kindly introduced me. And by the way, thank you for the very nice introduction. I consider myself a child of the life of Nigeria as a nation. Grew up in the 60s, saw stuff like We're Tier, which we are talking about today, saw the whole political development in the country up till now. I grew up in Lagos. My father was a senior civil servant who actually attended the Aburi meeting as a civil servant. We were kicked out of Lagos. Part of the problem is what we have today. So you can imagine me as a kid, I saw my father being promoted to a directorship position. I saw us being forced out of Lagos. In fact, they put us in a lorry from Ikoyi and dropped us in Ore. From there, we had to run back because the civil war was about to start. So I then continued the rest of my growth in Calabar, where I attended University of Calabar. I was a pioneer student. We were the very first set to start that university. And I was also a pioneer Students' Union president, the very first Students' Union president of that same university. And my going into what I would call community politics is because of my experience actually at the university. My direction in life was to be a medical doctor. I went to University of Calabar as a pre-med student. In fact, when I contested the Students' Union election, that was unusual in those days because it was supposed to be people from political science and science, those kind of social science related things. But I felt that there was a lot of wrong going on. I was going to the cafeteria and see people who cannot afford to buy food in a country producing that much oil. Be it as it may, I was part of the 5 students who organized the so-called Ali Must Go strike. People familiar with Nigerian Student Union politics will recall that strike. I was among the 5 of us. I was expelled from the university for that reason. I was arrested several times. On one occasion, Gani Fawemi had to come to Calabar to even have me freed at that point. So I could not go back to school. So I had to look for a way to get out of the country. And I could not get out of the country. And when I attempted to leave the country to attend a conference, my passport was seized at the airport. You can imagine I was like 20 years old at this time. So we had to look for a way for me to go and study because we did not know how long the military regime will last. I mean, they were organizing an election then, I believe the 79 election that brought in Shagari. But be it as it may, I managed to get out. I had the same progressive forces today. Some of them are in public life today, who were in the military at that time were the same people who sprinted me out of Nigeria through what we call the democracy route. where you leave the country through Cotonou. I was supposed to actually fly out of Cotonou, but when we got there, we were told that Nigerian security forces were at Cotonou, which is a mistake I think Igboho made. They caught him there. I ended up going all the way to Lomé, where I flew out. Had my education, came back, supposed to do my housemanship at Louth, but my parents were very aggressively against it. Because while I was trying to get my education, I came home on holidays and I was arrested. I was arrested at the airport. At that time, Shagari was president. And it was a strange arrest because I was actually pardoned by Shagari. When Shagari was elected civilian president, in that speech, he pardoned the 5 of us. But I didn't come back to Nigeria. Be it as it may, I'm just naming that to show that I've gone through that part of my life. So I then decided that, look, what I'm then going to do, because I could not come home because there was always an issue that I could get in trouble. Personally, I wanted to come to Nigeria. I miss Nigeria every single day in those days. Today, to be honest, I don't miss Nigeria as a person. I get angry at my relatives and friends and ordinary helpless Nigerians who are going through this Nigeria. This is not even the Nigeria that we fought for in those days. This is a different Nigeria. But the thing is, I went back. At some point, I even went to contest election for the Senate in 2003. Our governor, Victor Tar, talking with him, I came back, went through the primaries. It did not work out. But what that did was it exposed me to the system. I could see how rotten the system is. I remember in the middle thinking, man, if I get this nomination, because it was PDP that ran Akwa Ibom then, PDP still running Akwa Ibom today, and go to this Senate, there was a fear that I may not even function. It became clear to me that every single step you had to bribe somebody, every single step was corrupt, and the way it was set up, the way the Constitution was written, that's why when the governor told me, look, we are going with somebody else for some other political reasons, I was so happy. And I came back to New York to continue my academic career. And then I decided during that period that, okay, since Nigerian politics is so rotten, I then felt, let me help. So because of that, on my own way, I organized through the various places that I work, because at the New York University where I work, we have a global health program. And through that program, I helped establish an emergency medical system. It's still in progress in Akwa Ibom today. And I've done that part of my life. I've spent years in Nigeria doing that, essentially. There was a time I would spend 6 months every year. This is recently, like from 2007 up to like 2015. What this did was it further exposed me to Nigeria. I decided personally, and I talked with a lot of people, that Akwa Ibom has no place in Nigeria anymore. When I went to negotiate with Alhaji Shitu, who was the Minister of Communications, so that Akwa Ibom could get a dedicated number, emergency medical number that would help in case people have a heart attack, in case people fall on motorcycles, in case people have a bronchial asthma, very serious attack, or even go into bronchial asthma coma, stuff like that. Akwa Ibom is not a very big state in terms of the length. You can go from one side of Akwa Ibom to the other in less than 1.5 hours. So I do not see any reason why somebody will have a heart attack in Akwa Ibom and there's no ambulances, nothing could help.
Now, you make it sound as if there is anywhere in Nigeria where you have an emergency number and Akwa Ibom is left behind.
This is the point. Believe it or not, Mazi, this is what I was told by the minister. He says to me, doctor, that's what he called me. He said, well, in fact, he said to me, okay, if I grant you this number, it was a 611. We used 911 in New York. We asked for 611. If I grant you this number, what happens to Gombe? I'm like, I don't care what happens to Gombe. This is a federal system. Akwa Ibom has a right. We are not asking for a penny from this is Akwa Ibom state money. We are Akwa Ibom state medical professors, even though I had other professors though. I had
sure. Now, in America, where you are,
Yes,
you have 911, right?
that is correct.
Now, does New York have 112 and Washington, or maybe Arkansas or Florida have a different number?
Not right now, because New York is the US is not full and run. Not right now.
Well, it's
But
no.
they could
The
have made
point.
it
No, 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 no,
national.
no, no, no. The
Yes.
point I'm trying to make here is, I mean, Shitu, Shitu is not one of those that I do have much regard for. But the point I'm trying to make is this is something that is systemic. So not that it's Akwa Ibom specific. Even in a federal system, America is where we'll copy our crappy whatever from. But obviously, even in America, it's not the case. But Prof, before let me go back to something. You mentioned something. Would you consider yourself at the time that you are in the university? Would you consider yourself a radical student?
Well, they were throwing those names around. I considered myself what you call progressive these days. I just thought that from my very church training where I attended, I was lucky as a child. My parents were senior civil servants. I was extremely comfortable, but I was angry, mostly because of my religious upbringing, that with all this plentiful wealth, why are ordinary people suffering? So I felt I was a progressive. Some people called us radical. They called us all sorts of names. But I demanded equal rights for people. My father was a permanent secretary. I did not have any problem with school fees. Alimo's goal was a fight to make sure they do not introduce school fees in Nigerian universities with all that oil produced and all that corruption around.
Now, for many youngsters watching us today who did not go through that era of Alimo's Go, which was very popular, can you tell them what what Alimo's Go was and what you people protested at that time?
Okay, so that was funny enough. Looking at that time, it's almost like glory days. In those days, when Muritala Mohammed came to power in 1975, he empowered unions, including student unions, where we all belong to all the committees in the universities. We took direct part in the running of universities. And they used to have a meeting for us in Dodan Barracks once every month, where we go and sit down with Yaradua, the senior brother of the Yaradua who was president. I think his name was Musa Yaradua, if I'm not mistaken. We'll sit down with Musa Yaradua, the 12 of us from all the 12 universities, every single month will be flown with a free ticket, go to Lagos, and Yaradua will talk about the country with us because they were planning to do an election in 79. And they will talk to us, look, this is the economy, because they wanted to engage us because we were making a lot of noise. And it was a very nice thing. They would sit down. In one of the last meetings, they had a budget thing where they were, look, we're going to introduce school fees. And we're like, no, you are not. When we saw the budget, we go to our own universities, we see all those corrupt contractors driving around. We're like, no, you can afford to give free education. And remember, we already had free education. In those days, if you admitted to a Nigerian university, you are coming free. The only thing is you have to feed yourself. You have to take care of all kinds of things. But the school fees itself was free. And we felt that that was so basic in an oil-producing country. So when Yadra told us, this is going to be government policy, we're like, no, it's not going to happen. We're going to shut the place down. So we had 12 universities in those days. We held several meetings. We had meetings in University of Ilorin. In fact, Mazi, I could tell you one interesting thing. It's only University of Nigeria and Zuka. There's a guy there called Chudi Uwazurike. I don't know whether you know Chudi. Chudi ended up serving in the Federal House. He was the president then. And Chudi says to us, well, Nzuka is not going to follow us. We're like, why? They were like, after the Civil War, that Igbo leaders are very, they're very worried. They don't want their people involved. We just had Civil War. I and the five of us, we had to travel to Enugu. We had to travel to Enugu to meet, his name just Jim Mwobodo, to meet Jim and say, are you serious? This is a national thing. Just to cut the long story short, the thing is this, that we as a group, the whole of us, all the student leaders in Nigeria. In fact, if you want to call people radical, the more radical were the student leaders from Ahmadu Bello. Those were even more radical. They had what they call Samaro campus, which was like a different campus. So we together came and said, no, you cannot charge fees to people who cannot pay. We already have free this thing, and that was what led to Ali Must Go. So
Okay.
I invited all student leaders to University of Calabar. I moved that motion for Ali Must Go, and it was started on BBC in those days.
Thank you very much for that great insight. Before I bring you to the core issue, talk about the agitation which you are involved in. Let me, during your, in your introduction, you said something that your father was involved in the Aburi Accord negotiation. That struck a bell. Could you tell us more about that?
Well, he was a civil servant, as I say. He was not a political person. There were those who sit down and write notes in meetings.
Did he attend the Aburi Accord meeting?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so he was part of those that took the note.
He was part of those that took the note. There were, I don't even remember how many, but there was a lot of them. In fact, there's a friend of mine whose father was an assistant director who went to that same meeting, who lived not far from us. They went there, they basically took notes, and they had records. The funny thing is, my father came back with about 70-something, like this. Those records they used to play in those days. They recorded the meeting, and he actually brought these things back home, which we have in our storage. So
do you still have a copy of it, or copies?
I would. It's in the village. It's in my father's house in the village. You never know with Nigeria, but the last time I saw it was 2000.
If if there is any way you can lay your hands on them, I wouldn't. Njenje Media wouldn't mind digitalizing it.
Okay.
Digitalizing it and bring it, because that's part of documenting history.
It is.
So now it's obviously that was the Aburi and the involvement of your father. Now, if I come to you, what was your experience in 1966, 1967 like? You said as a young child.
Yes.
Suddenly, from Lagos, you went home.
Yes.
How was the experience?
We were kicked out. My father was going to be announced as the most senior surveyor in Nigeria. In fact, Agua Ibom was supposed to make that announcement. And because of the ethnicity in the ministry, they did not want my father announced, even though he was the most senior surveyor we had in civil service then, because the ministry was called Ministry of Survey. So my father ran away, he escaped. So they packed all our things. In fact, the truck, drove us to that truck remained with us until the Civil War ended. It's federal ministry truck. So for me, that is the time as a kid, I started wondering about how everybody really my brothers here? Is everybody really my sisters here? And that to me, in those days, that was something that was in my head. I was conscious of it. So where we are today, to me, that is when it started.
Okay, so your father ran because he was considered to be part of the Eastern region.
That is correct. My father
ran because he felt his life was at threat.
No, not just feel, his life was threatened.
Okay.
In fact, his Yoruba friends came to the house. The night they came to tell him that they're going to kill you. That, remember, we were not even in politics. We were going to be very happy to stay in Lagos. That's where we were our whole lives. But my father escaped. When he left, we didn't know where he was. We then went to our village. This was the first time I ever saw my village in Akwa Ibom. I've never in my life ever been there. So, but my father had to go to Enugu. When he got to Enugu, Ojukwu appointed him chief surveyor of Biafra.
Okay. So eventually your father relocated to Enugu and joined the Biafran.
You could say that, joined in inverted commas, open and close. Because
well,
even when
he was a Biafran because the old Eastern region was converted.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. He's a Biafran. The only problem was when he got to Enugu. We had a house in Enugu. So in fact, we were hoping, because we ran to Akwa Ibom and we wanted to move. We were already planning to move to Enugu. But unfortunately, we could not move because when my father got to Enugu, and my father was actually announced as chief surveyor, there were all kinds of issues there. He had all kinds of problems there, and he escaped again the second time. Because he had another set of ethnic issues. And it's particularly striking because my father
Hold on. Let me clarify this.
Yes.
His house was attacked in Enugu.
He was not attacked. No. He was uncomfortable. He had ethnic issues. He was not harmed or hurt by anybody. But if he did not feel safe, so he ran away.
He did not feel safe in Enugu.
That's correct. That's why we did not end up moving.
Even within, as it were, within Biafra, he still didn't feel safe.
That is correct. He did not feel safe.
Then he ran back to Akwa Ibom.
He ran back to the village, which is a funny thing because in the middle of the Civil War, I remember one night we had to knock on the door. He came into the house. In fact, we hid him in the house for, I don't know, 2 months without anybody knowing that he was there.
Who was after him?
Well, I mean, there were all kinds of things going on. There were people in Biafra who felt he should not be the surveyor general, which is a very odd thing because Akpan was there, but Akpan didn't seem to have the same problem. But there were people like my father who had those issues.
Okay. So let's come down to the nitty-gritties of this conversation. Now, I've watched your video where you talk about the Ibom Nation. Can you do two things for me? One, can you define what the Ibom Nation agitation is all about?
Okay. So we are advocating. We don't want to be part of Nigeria anymore. Not that it matters that much because we are not really part of Nigeria in so many ways, right? We have a couple of people like Minister Godswill Akpabio running around in Abuja. We are not really part of Nigeria. The decision about what happens in Akwa Ibom or what happens in Nigeria is not made by any of us. So we feel that we should have our own republic, Ibom People's Republic, which is a republic that is made up of the 31 local governments in Akwa Ibom state, 7 million Akwa Ibom citizens. So for us, it's just a matter of why are we even wasting our time? We are nothing in this place. So we want to go and form our own republic. And by the way, Mazi, I'll tell you, part of my own life experience is this. I live in the former Soviet Union. I lived there. I lived there for 11 years. 11 years. I remembered when I first arrived from Nigeria, and this was a communist government. So you can imagine everything is peachy. It's not in Nigeria today. They allow you to say a few things, but they will still arrest you if you are like that security guy, or if you go and mention self-emancipation in channels, they will arrest you. You know, or if you are Nnamdi Kanu and they will kidnap you. They do those things. But in Soviet Union, it was worse because you couldn't even say a word on television. You couldn't say a word anywhere. My own classmates, because think about this. I lived there for so long, it's hard to hide. My own classmates, my own Baltic classmates said to me, the Russians are terrible people. We don't want to be under Russians. The Ukrainians said the same thing. In fact, I had a classmate from one of the former Yugoslavian, one of those states that broke off from Yugoslavia.
Serbia.
It's not Serbia, it's the other one. It's not Serbia. It's the one that played in the World Cup finals. The name just escaped my head now.
It's all right. Go ahead.
Yes.
I don't watch football, so.
Oh no! This is because I remember people calling me who knew me and asked me, that guy, and the guy I come, I'm like, oh, how are you? I'm Offiong Aqua from Nigeria, and he introduced himself from his ethnic group, and I remember thinking, is that a country? He said, yes.
Is that Croatia, you mean? Is that Croatia, you mean?
Croatia, that's correct. Croatia. He says, oh no, I'm from Croatia. I'm not from Yugoslavia. I was laughing because it was really one country. We Nigerians were laughing at stuff like that. But among those people, among the Russians themselves, there was a lot of ethnic division. Remember, this is under communism, where there's supposed to be no ethnic divisions. It's supposed to be all ideology, right? It's supposed to be communism versus capitalism. Well, we saw it. I feel this is the same thing going on in Nigeria today. Nobody wants to tell the truth that the country is being run as an ethnic thing. And because I feel if you're honest, if Russians were honest with that, the former Soviet Union, maybe they would have been able to keep themselves together. That dishonesty, that if you try to say something that you know is really happening, nobody wants to hear. After living there, I remember the same thing I hear in Nigeria today. I remember my classmates, I had classmates from Lithuania who were told, they were telling me, look, Offiong, we don't want to be part of this thing. In fact, we want to go and form our own country in Lithuania. We laughed at them. Their fathers had gone away. Eventually, that place broke up. I feel like that today.
So on a lighter note, you took your radicalism to the Soviet Union and broke them apart.
No, I was just watching. I didn't say much, but I learned a lot. I found that if people want self-determination, it's better. One of my classmates from Lithuania became Minister of Health in Lithuania, and he sent me numbers. Life expectancy in Lithuania increased almost 25%. The education got better because they got their self-determination. And people were telling them, oh, you're too small. You're 5 million. You are this, you are that. No.
So in what you're fighting for is for 31 local government, which is actually the Akwa Ibom that people know today. Is that correct?
Yes, 31 local government, 7 million people.
The state Akwa Ibom people know today.
Yes.
Now, some already in these, if I take sample of the comments people are making on our various social media handle where we are streaming these.
Okay.
One of the questions people are asking, why do you want to fight for Ibom Republic and not to support the Biafran struggle?
I don't think Biafran struggle has anything to do with Akwa Ibom State and the 7 million Akwa Ibom people.
But invariably, Akwa Ibom was part of Biafra when you were there.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Akwa Ibom was part of Biafra, not by any type of agreement, not by nobody in the whole of Akwa Ibom agreed to be part of Biafra. In fact, on the other hand, they opposed Biafra, which to me, I tried to put that part of the history behind because I support the Igbos getting their own country, an Ibom Nation, which is Biafra, obviously. If anybody can call it what they want, but I support that. However, no, in fact, Akwa Ibom people opposed Biafra. If you remember, all the major Akwa Ibom leaders ran away. The ones that remained were considered sellouts. I'm being blunt here. Akwa Ibom people are not, they never wanted to be Biafra. Akwa Ibom was made Biafra by fiat. There was no, nobody was talked to, there was no referendum, there was no, in fact, my remembrance, I'll tell you this, and I'll ask anybody to contradict me.
The second in command to Ojukwu,
yes,
Offiong, General Offiong, where is it from? Or where was it from?
It's from Akwa Ibom, just like Sibanjo, it's from, those things mean nothing. I'm sorry, just because it is easy to pick people, pick Onyama and say it's foreign, because they pick Onyama, so that when the Americans raise the issue of how the Igbos are badly treated in Nigeria, they're like, look at Onyama, who was a friend of Abba Kyari, please. Those narratives don't work anymore. The issue is who runs things, and where people consulted. The new Akwa Ibom we want to create, the Ibom People's Republic will consult people. There will be no putting people in symbolic positions. By the way, I know Enyo Akpan personally. I have spent 3 weeks in Enyo Akpan's house talking because he wrote a book. I will sit down and talk about the book with him. And I have had a lot of discussion personally with, just like General Offiong. I met General Offiong in Uyo and we became friends before he died. So to me, this is 2021.
Now, when you met General Offiong, obviously late now, may his soul rest in peace.
Yes.
So it meant when you met him, did he tell you that he was a Biafran not by his own volition?
No, he did not. Oh no, he did not. General Offiong, in as much as he's an open person and he talked with a younger person like me, who felt that our people, Akwa Ibom people, were forced into Biafra because they just, boom, Biafra, and you're part of it, no discussions. So he did love Biafra. You have to understand, he was in the military. He tried to follow the rules in the military. But he's a nice person, though. He's not, I told him, I gave him instances how all of Akwa Ibom chiefs were brought to Enugu and told, whether you like it or not, you're having Biafra. And they just scurried away like rats back home. And he told me, well, you know, we could have make it work. I said, maybe, who knows? Maybe you could have made it work, but you are not convincing anybody at home.
But the history book had it that in the old Eastern region, you know, there was what was called the Eastern Consultative Assembly.
Yes.
Made up of all the representatives, including Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
Now, in democracy, not everyone, when you have elected representative, means you cede your right and you cede your powers to them for them to take decisions rightfully, hopefully, on your behalf. And if that is done, one expects that they are representing you. Then if we had the Consultative Assembly that made conscious decision and empowered and convinced late Colonel Odumegwu Chukwuemeka Ojukwu to say, go ahead with Biafra. Isn't it then, would someone say, a little bit absurd to say, well, we weren't part of this, yet you conceded to it?
Okay. I mean, that's a good question. First of all, let me say that it's not absurd. I'll give you two reasons. Two.
Okay.
One reason is an old reason. The other reason is a brand new reason. This is the old reason. Maybe people say they should remember the real history. I really feel that people of that time did what they could. I try not to criticize them a lot, even though I disagree strongly with how our leaders conducted themselves, because I have a whole set of totally different sets of Southeasterners who are different from those people. I can say this for a fact. But be it as it may, this is the old reason. Professor Oyoita was essentially head of government business in Eastern region. When Azikiwe was pushed out by Action Group, he ran back to the East and Oyoita had to leave. Our people were very angry about that. Even as a child, I used to see...
But that was democratically done. He lost an election.
No, he did not. No, he did not. He did not. There was no election. What particular election was held? What you want to say, this is what you want to say to me, that the party sat around and told him, well, you know, sorry, you know, our own Zik is coming back, therefore you have to go. If he says no, then say, let's vote. The kind of thing that Buhari does today, let's vote. That's my second reason. They will go to this shameless Senate, a Senate with numbers of population that nobody has ever verified. A Senate in which they decided, even the way they structure the country, you go to today's Senate. So if today's Senate makes a decision, for example, do you really take it seriously? The Senate is dominated and controlled by one section of the country. You could call that democracy. I would say, well, you know what? Hitler was democratically elected. Buhari was democratically elected, wasn't he? But now everything is dominated by a certain group in Nigeria itself. And he does not even obey court orders. He had to push out the Cross River born Onogen and bring a Sharia chief judge. I'm sure someone will say, well, it's democracy. So whatever the North wants to do in Nigeria, people consider it democracy. They're not even obeying even laws. Buhari does not obey court orders. Let us be careful about democracy here. There was no democracy in Eastern region. That's not the thing for us to go in. I think the most important thing, Mazi, today is this. That era had passed. Okay. Our people were clearly unhappy. The anger of our people today, let us not dismiss it. Let us just say this, that in 2021, it is very important. People are allowed their self-determination.
Sure.
Soviet Union had 250 million people divided into 16 countries.
That's why we're having this conversation. Now, let me ask a follow-up question to that. Yes. Is it because Buhari is the president? Will you be agitating for an Akwa Ibom nation if, say, for instance, Goodluck Jonathan was still the president?
Well, to be honest, even during the Goodluck Jonathan's period, You see, this is again, this democracy business. Jonathan was supposed to represent the South-South. Both of us know that Jonathan was picked by Obasanjo because Obasanjo clearly knew that Jonathan is not going to represent no South-South. Nobody in the South-South picked Goodluck. None. I would like somebody to show me a nomination process where we pick Goodluck. I am saying this because I was there in Uyo, in Hilltop Mansion, when Goodluck came there to ask for the South-South nomination. So I know that there was no process. Obasanjo picked him because Obasanjo knew that the guy was weak. Obasanjo knew that the guy would not be able to stand for his own people. Obasanjo knew all that. That is a problem. These are the kind of the things that leads people like me to say, maybe it is time for self-determination. I try not to say what to attack people or to demean somebody like Goodluck, because Goodluck tried his best. There's nothing wrong. Goodluck was in school with me the same period. When Goodluck was in University of Port Harcourt, I was in University of Calabar. I'm sure he's a decent man. But Goodluck did not bring a single project to Akwa Ibom. Goodluck completely ignored Akwa Ibom. And it's not because he's a bad guy. It was because he has to do the bidding of either Obasanjo or be scared of the North. Look at the way he ran away, even though there was a small challenge to an election. To me, you see, this is the kinds of things that make people like me say, you know what? Why not just have it? Let Goodluck have his own nation. Let Akwa Ibom have their own nation. Let Biafra have their own Biafra, and we move on.
But you also admitted at the beginning that you also ran away in 2003 when you also admitted that you somewhat were happy, or rather that you were happy to have run. You know, when you saw how things were actually
I saw how corrupt the system was. Yeah. I left. Yes, it was very important for me, though. I'm someone who reflects a lot. I needed to come and take my time and think, and I realized it is not going to work. The Constitution.
Okay, so now, when you talk about self-determination, let's get this, very clear. What do you have in mind? An independent nation called Ibom Republic, or
Ibom People's Republic, IPR,
or a quasi-independent nation within Nigeria, in the context of the way you have in a United Kingdom, where you have the Irish, the Scottish, the Welsh, the English. Which of these models do you have in mind?
The model I have in mind is the model that they had in Yugoslavia, which I think is 7 countries now. Is Sudan, which is Christian, South Sudan and Sudan. Is former Yugoslavia, which is broken up. Former Soviet Union, 250 million people broken up into 16 countries. Former Czechoslovakia, which is Czech and Slovakia. Those are the models that I have in mind. I have come to this. It took me forever to come to this because, as you can see, I was even trying to participate in the system because I believed somehow that there could be change. Today, I am very, very confident because, as I said, I practice as a medical doctor in Soviet Union, and I can tell you, I know a lot. I know a lot, and I really, really became convinced that Nigeria needed to go along ethnic nationalities. That's what former Soviet Union did today. Today, Belarus is by itself. Today, Kazakhstan is by itself. Today,
but would you be arguing the way you are arguing if you had got into the Senate? If I want to say,
okay,
maybe you've taken the position you're taking because you didn't get into the Senate.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. That question would have worked before 2015 because people did ask me that question. And my response is that I don't think I would have lasted in the Senate for 1 month.
Why?
Let me give you an example, Mazi. When I was contesting my election, do you know what Donald Duke, the former governor of Cross River, said to me? He said, "Professor, this one you are running around, you have to go and talk to Babangida." I said, "For what?" He said, "You have to go to Mina." He said, "They own the place now." Think about that. Think about that. They own the place. So I have to travel from Uyo, from Akwa Ibom, which is the #1 earner in Nigeria, to Mina, and talk to Babangida.
Did you do that?
Absolutely not. I did not do that. I think maybe that's part of my issues. I did not do that. I would not have lasted. But let me tell you why I proved to myself I would not have lasted. Around 2012, 2013, I believe, Godswill Akpabio, who is now a federal minister of Niger Delta, he was somebody that I worked with. I helped establish emergency medicine with him when he was a governor in Akwa Ibom State. He offered me.
Sorry. Before you continue, is that facility still functional?
Yes, it is. It is. In fact, Akwa Ibom, I don't know about many states, but in our part of the country, Akwa Ibom has the highest number of people who are licensed by American Heart Association in BLS, basic life-saving activities, in ACLS, advanced cardiac health. These are American Heart Association certifications. I and some professors from Duke University, from NYU, we helped set it up. It is being set up. It is being developed there. There's a guy called Dr. Dominic Ukpong who is helping develop, actually develop that particular structure. But what I wanted to say was that Godswill Akpabio offered me commissioner. A lot of people who are in this kind of business, who are Akwa Ibom elite, they are aware of this. In fact, somebody raised it, trying to use it against me recently. He offered me commissioner for health. And I tried to discuss the terms with him. When it became clear to me that I was going to be going there to be giving contracts, I was going to be going there and not helping build the place. And I was told, well, that's how Nigeria works, not even Akwa Ibom. I turned it down. I left my house in New York. I already discussed taking a leave of absence from my job. Already discussed it. I went there actually thinking I'm going to take the job. I didn't ask for much. All I wanted was, let me run these ministries. These ministries. This is what I want to do. And I gave a list. If you just let me do this, I don't care. I don't want anything. Just pay me my salary. I'll do it for 2-3 years. I don't even want to do it more than 2-3 years. Make a difference. Then go back and continue my life. When I was told the things I needed to do, I backed down. So I know I would not have been able to share money in Nigerian Senate.
What are the things you were told that you needed to do? May you tell us?
Okay. So first of all, before I was offered the appointment, I was hired to come and do an audit. And I think because of my integrity, to come and do an audit of the 45 general hospitals and 287 healthcare centers in Akwa Ibom. I spent 4 years of my life doing this. I would go there. I went hospital to hospital. And I was shocked at the complete devastation when in Uyo, I'm seeing senators with Bentleys. Those type of things worry me. I'm sorry. So when I did the audit, I presented that audit to an emergency meeting of Akwa Ibom State Executive Council. Akwa Ibom State Executive Council's meet on Wednesday, emergency meeting is on Friday. I did it. So it was based on that. They said, okay, come and set it up then. But then I realized that they're not even going to give me the resources to do it. Because I then realized that, hey, if I made a commission now, don't forget, party get 15%, governor get this one get that, which was odd to me because they know who I am. I'm not going to go there and use money that would have been used to buy antibiotics for people to take care of a traditional ruler. In Ibom People's Republic, people will be executed for that. That is killing another human being. That's not me. And that was not going to happen. So when people say, well, you could have survived in the Senate, I say, oh no.
Okay.
No. Yep.
Now, in the concept of which you've explained to us, meaning what you are agitating is a clear decimation of the Nigerian union, or rather, a clear pulling out from the Nigerian Union and forming your own nation,
Yes.
Ibom People's Republic.
Yes.
In doing that, you have the Efik, you have the Bibius,
yes.
You have in Cross Rivers, what becomes their fate?
Yes. Okay. Again, I think I've been lucky in my life. I've been around. The same discussion went on in former Soviet Union. Do you know what people were saying? Because they were saying, well, since we are going to break up, because that's almost the kind of thing that you are trying to say now. You know, be careful because, you know, the Lithuanian, I mean, both all of you speak the same similar language, right? And, you know, the stance, the Kazakhstan and all that, you are all Muslims, you know, that kind of thing. You all understand each other. This group, that group, let us be careful here. Let us not make it too tiny. When the place broke up, all those places broke up into pieces. The Baltics broke up into 5 countries, same language. To me, the issue is not language and identity. I do agree, though, if someone with your language and identity wants to be with you, maybe it's better. Fine. Right now, today, Ibom People's Republic, we have a draft element of our constitution. We have our own We have what we hope our republic will be. I give you an example here. You steal money, you get shot. We already have these things. So when we form our republic, and somebody from Delta says, I want to be part of that republic, we give him the document. Are you ready to do this? Are you ready that when your child is born in Oron, that child can grow up in that Oron and become the chairman of that local government, even though he's from Ikorekpene? Are you ready that if you live in Uyo, you are suddenly an Uyo person? We have very strict principles because everything Nigeria has failed, we will do the opposite. If Nigeria did A, we want to do B. We are very confident of this. So if cross-rivarians, as I said, we speak the same language, we are essentially the same people. If they want to be with us, that's fine. But let's get this republic first. So Mazi, I don't know whether you know that thing where you sit on the plane. If the plane is having some problem, they say, well, when the oxygen mask drop, put it on your face first before you put it on your child. That's where we are.
Okay. So the big question and the elephant in the room, I will come back with that question shortly. Yes. Now, thank you everyone for joining me. I am having this conversation, very interesting conversation with Professor Offiong Aqua, and that conversation is on the Akwa Ibom Nation, or rather the Ibom People's Republic, as he wishes to call it. If you haven't subscribed to our various media channel, please do so now. You can click on the subscribe button, exit the charts, click on the subscribe button, be part of this conversation. Use the comment section. Again, I say to us, be civil. That's all. Now, Prof, the elephant in the room is, you have these ideas. I don't want to use the adjective lofty. You know, this is what you want. But if I may ask, then I say, how are you going to get it?
That's a good question. That is a question that I think we have spent a lot of sleepless nights and a few years thinking about. I have come to a conclusion, as I said, from my life experience, that if people feel cheated, today, Akwa Ibom donates 40% to the federal budget, it gets 1%. We are having continuous opportunity to let our people get sensitized on this. We feel that when we get to that point, it will be a matter of our demanding. And that time, the demand will be different. Today, you have somebody like me. When that time comes, there'll be 7 million people like me that don't want to be in a country where they have nothing to do with any decision. They are considered second class. They're put down. Nobody wants to listen to them. They're nothing. I feel that if 7 million Akwa Ibom people, which we know we are in the pathway now, don't want to be in Nigeria, it is impossible to keep Akwa Ibom in Nigeria itself. Now, in terms of the exact methodology, what are our plans? When Buhari reveals his plans to bring in all those Fulani from Niger Republic and Mauritania to Nigeria, we will reveal our own plans. It is sufficient for me to say that we have plans, both public and non-public. In fact, our non-public plans are stronger because we are fighting an enemy which has no conscience, an enemy that is not even ready to sit down with you and reason, and even say, excuse me, I mean, an enemy that calls somebody a dot, and says that people outside that dot will not even be allowed to pass through areas without talking to anybody in that areas like us. No. We have, so my answer to your question, we have both public and non-public methods.
So meaning
yes,
the non-public answers that you have might be that people might wake up one day and say, voila, we have a new republic. You can take people by surprise.
It has happened a lot. Me and you, we watch world history. It happens. We've seen it happen. You know that sometimes they say things cannot happen, and then suddenly you have a coup in, what was that, Mali or wherever it was recently. So things do happen. Our job is to prepare ourselves, is to make sure our people are ready and understand that they are political slaves in Nigeria. That is very, very important for us. The rest, I think we can get it done.
On the screen here is the federal allocation to the 36 states in Nigeria, FY20, in the financial year 2020.
Yes.
Now, this information is from the Bureau of Statistics, National Bureau of Statistics.
Yes.
And if I look at the revenue allocation,
yes,
Delta is at the top, followed by Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
Then one will be curious. Is your group, or rather, I rephrase, what has your group done to hold the reps, those who are mismanaging these humongous billions?
Yes.
What has your group done to hold them to account? There is a proverb in my place. It says, from the smell of the fat, you have an idea how the real deal will taste.
Yes.
Now, have you been able to hold those who are mismanaging? Because at the end of the day, even if some people will argue, even if the new republic comes, it will be a relocation of those looters. They will still be in charge.
Yes.
Because if in the Republic of Akwa Ibom or Ibom Republic, whatever it is going to be called, and someone says, and these people gang together to say, well, to buy a form in any political party to contest for the governorship or let's assume that those 31 local government becomes states. Now to contest for any of those local government or state as it may be in that entity, that is going to be 300 million Akwa Ibom shillings. Who knows? I'm just trying to join you and have wild imagination now. So if that happens, how are the people who are still being held down?
Yes.
If you haven't fought for them, now that they are receiving this, how is that magic going to happen when you get to that bridge?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think it's a credible, relevant question. I think it was an adage that you just gave me. I could give you something similar. But let me just say this. Two of the local newspapers, it's just that one was published today. I don't know whether you know that as we speak now, there is a week-long celebration of the founding of Akwa Ibom State in 1987. So I was interviewed by what I consider the most credible local paper in Akwa Ibom. They interviewed me and asked me to review, it was published this morning, in fact, I was at work when I saw it. They asked me to review how our governors have performed since the state has been created. I was very blunt. Very blunt. The worst governor we ever had is Senator Augustine Akwa Ibom. In fact, Okonjo-Iweala.
Hold on, you said the worst.
The worst.
But many people praise him as the one, and we'll be surprised to hear from you because you also worked with him.
Absolutely. You know, Amazi, you remind me of what one of my colleagues is from Gambia said to me this morning. He was, Buhari has a lot of support in Nigeria. I was like, what's that? He said he saw those men they paid, those Black Americans who were paid to carry placards. That's what we're talking about now. In Akwa Ibom, nobody thinks like that about Gospel. Gospel used to pay close to 100 million naira every single month to AIT to talk about how it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. The Minister of Finance at the time, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is now the trade boss, the world trade boss, she said, and it is, you can Google it. She said that 90% of the revenue of Akwa Ibom has been, nobody knows where it is. That Gospel Akpabio only used 10%.
Hold on, 90%.
90%. Remember, I'm not quoting myself, I'm quoting Okonjo-Iweala. By the way, it was in that interview. I told them they went and did their research and confirmed it. Now, basically, the guy only used 10% for the 8 years he was there. I said that in that interview. I've had some pushback from some of the people who used to share that money with him this morning. I'm sorry, even today, we are letting our people know that people like that will not survive for 10 minutes in Ibom People's Republic. We are very, very adamant about this.
So Ibom People's Republic will be emulating Taliban.
No, Ibom People's Republic will be emulating Dubai. Ibom People's Republic will be emulating China, where when people steal money, they jump off roofs because they're afraid of what will happen to them. But there's a solution. Don't steal the money. We are not Taliban. We are very, as I said, we're going to run a very, very democratic, even our constitution, we're going to take 2 years of people to review it. Then we have a referendum on the constitution itself. We are going to be muscularly democratic. We are going to be a country where everybody's equal. There is nobody bigger than the other. But one thing we cannot tolerate, because that's what killed Nigeria. Because we lived in Nigeria, my whole life, except for the times I was outside, I was born there. What killed Nigeria is this so-called corruption. People act as if it cannot be fixed. Well, we will fix it. Because you know why? We're going to have credibility to fix it. Our people will know they wrote our constitution. Our people will know that they are with me. In this fight, our people are with me. And others, we are doing it together. Yes.
I do understand that. I take that into account. But the question remains.
Yes. I wanted to answer
the money. Okay.
Yes. Let me talk about the federal allocation. I find it interesting, right? It's like my father has a mansion with many houses, with gardens, right? Somebody my relatives there pick an apple from that garden. But people come from outside, take the whole garden, take half of the mansion, and I'm told, go find, yes, of course. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. You see those numbers you showed? Nobody, the Bureau of Statistics has never done a number on the contribution of all of those states to the federal purse. Akwa Ibom contributes between 37 and 40% to the federal purse. We get those numbers, you see, is only 1%. You may be interested to know this. Please go and look into this, sir, because it looks like you're a credible organization.
Now, of course I do. Obviously I also look into that. In terms of the contribution from the oil and also the VAT. But the point is,
yes,
I'm struggling honestly to see how mansions will be built.
Yes.
If the state is getting today being mismanaged, yet the same people are not angry enough. I mean, let's it is always easy for people to say Buhari has done this, Fulani has done this.
Yes,
but the taste of the pudding is in the eating locally. The same thing I tell my people of Abia State. You can be angry at Buhari, yet when you go to Aba, women who have dirty waters get up to their bras, and people are keeping quiet. I'm like,
I am going to humbly disagree with that analogy. Humbly.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with the women in Aba. I promise you. I promise you that if the women in Aba or the women in Uyo were in a system most people agree is legitimate, a system that everybody is equal. I mean, we're not going to get everybody 100% equal, but at least there is some semblance of credibility. Look, I live here in New York. I know a lot of people here. I don't think they're as disciplined as those women as serious as those women in a bar. But when I come out of my house, I drive, I see a damn traffic light. I can't run that red light. I cannot. Because if I run it, they will get me, and real police will get me, and real court will deal with me. I cannot go to that court and complain that the head of the court is a Sharia judge. I can't do that. People laugh at me. Because even the people here decided that they want that traffic light. There was a time in a street not far from me, people decided they petitioned the people, the transport people, and they had a traffic light. I'm sorry. Why is it that simple things like that? I'm a professor in the largest university in this country. Nigerians seem to outperform anybody. So what happened? What happened? So the women in Aba, if you bring those women here, they will be like Obama's wife. I'm sorry. Let's not blame these poor people. When you are put in a straight jacket, you are put in a system that does not function. And why do you think the system in America, even with all its problems, the system in Singapore, even with all its problems, the system in Dubai, even with all its problems, function because people believe in it. People believe. And how do you make people to believe? You bring them along. Not bring them along by giving them money. That's not what you want to talk about. You bring them along by, look, this is good for all of us. It's not about me. I'm just like you. As a leader, it is that constitution. You may not believe this, where because if federalism was there, it would be different. That governor in Aba, that Ojikalu, and all those governors you see in Aba would never, in a credible society with real rules and real agreement to follow rules, they will not.
And that is it, Prof. I think we will be rounding up now. But my question is, we do not have a credible environment. We do not have a credible system.
Mm-hmm.
Question again is, in view of not having all this, which I push back to the analogy I gave before,
yes,
what is it that the group agitating for this nation have done within the context of the current mismanagement?
Yes.
Because what I keep saying is, even if you move from point A to point B,
mm-hmm.
these are the same level of thieves. They have to, it's a relocation of, sometimes I call it the relocation of thieves.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't even think that matters at this point.
No, of
people
course.
People,
okay.
even when they're thieves, even if they're going to be, let it be our own thieves. People have a right to say, I don't want to be with you. You can't force a person in a divorce and say, excuse me, how do you know your next husband will be better? We, on a matter of principle, don't want to be in Nigeria again. We don't feel like Nigeria. We know Nigeria has screwed us. Let people convince us how bad we are going to be after that. That's our problem. It is a matter of rights. When black fight for civil rights, that's your right. You are not. It's not a negotiation. We are not in a marketplace where, like, are you really sure this right that you are not better off being a house slave than being the? No, it is our right. It is our human rights. It's entrenched in UN charter that when UN was formed in 1945 after the Second World War. We don't want to be in Nigeria. Based on that principle, we feel we are political slaves. That's how we feel. We are not really interested in how Nigeria wants to reconstruct itself. God bless them. Let Ibom People Republic go. Go and reconstruct yourself. Since you are worried that any new country will have the same amount of thieves, let that man come. Let Pantami. Let me have Akwa Ibom Pantami. I can live with Akwa Ibom Pantami than that Pantami who trained in Sudan. I'm sorry. We want our own country.
Now,
we want Nigeria.
Let me take some questions from the audience.
Yes.
Maybe I take about 2 questions from the audience. So please ask very straight to the point. We are rounding up now. Question. One of the questions that I scrolled up before was someone asked, you have the, I think it's called the Oram, that there is a disagreement in Ibom already. And what happens when they say, no, we are not going with you, and we want ours as well? What then happens?
Well, I think that's left for Akwa Ibom people, honestly. In the interview that I gave to Southern Examiner that was published today, the Oron question came. And it is, as far as I'm concerned, the Oron issue needs to be addressed. In our republic, Oron will be number 1 even. I'm sorry. Oron will be equal to everybody else. We have our issues, but we cannot. You cannot have blacks fighting for civil rights. You're like, well, how about the light-skinned and black-skinned? Of course that's there. Nobody's denying that. I just we have a problem which we must address. As Akwa Ibom people, it's beyond Oron. We have more than Oron problem. We have other issues. It is our responsibility. I, as a leader, am addressing those responsibilities as we speak. We need that. Oron, not just Oron, Eket had some problem, which some people felt that they were passed over, and I kind of see it. In fact, in my interview today, I said to that guy, I said, the present governor had not treated Eket well. But in Ibom People Republic, we won't even have that discussion.
But Oron is apparently where most of the oil is it?
I would not really say that. Oron, it's hard to say because oil is in the 5 local governments in Akwa Ibom where you have the oil. Oron is part of it. You have Oron, you have Ibno, you have Esreket, you have Ona, But to me, for example, let me give you an example. For me, in Oron area where you have those oil, why the state should tax the damn oil? The locals there, Oron should be Dubai. Eket should be Dubai. That is my own position. You know what though? That's why I'm saying to you, let's form our own country. Let's have the Dubai. Let Oron say, excuse me, this is our oil. I'll be the first person to say, yes, we are all brothers. This oil is there. You are suffering the most. I'm not giving you no 13%. Where I hand over to some governor who carry it back and come and give to some Alhaji who says he's running a federal party. No, give it directly to the Oron people. So if people want to bring the Oron as a divisive thing, it will not work because
I hope after this interview there wouldn't be people clamoring for an independent nation or independent republic of Oron. I won't be surprised.
I can assure you. Just like, Texas, I don't know whether you know this, that Texas, even a few years ago, Texas is clamoring for this thing. But when Texas people realize that they're being treated equally, when they realize that that oil in Texas belongs to them, the oil does not belong to somebody in Montana, they will keep quiet and remain. Oron is part of us. Half of my own family is from Oron. That is not the point. Yes.
But exactly what you've just said now. Now, it means if you're given resource control, would it mean that you reconsider your position?
I don't understand. I don't understand.
No, if you're given resource control, if you're given the let's say the way you have, they say Zamfara gold for Zamfara.
Yes.
The oil in Oron, the oil in Eket, or everywhere in your state is given to you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that mean, by the virtue of your argument, does that mean then you say, okay, because we can now control this, we can stay within the context?
I never brought Oron up. In fact, the oil is only brought up in the context that's what the state itself contributes to the federal post. We don't want to be part of Nigeria. We've been tricked before. We've been told, don't worry. We'll form NDDC. NDDC, all the contractors are Northern Alhajis who control the money. We are going to form Ministry of Niger Delta, and they bring us like Babio, who is much more interested in satisfying people in the North who gave him that position. Governors. A governor, have you noticed that before a governor even gets nomination, he has to go to the federal parties. The 2 biggest parties in Nigeria, one is controlled by Atiku Abubakar, PDP. The second one is controlled by that guy, a governor from Yobe State. I'm sorry. We have passed that stage, Mazi. I hope you found me 5 years ago. I would have gone into these esoteric discussions about how to make this nice thing. It's over. We are not against anybody. We are only for Akwa Ibom people. Do we have problems in Akwa Ibom? Absolutely. I assure you, that Oron person would rather, or any other person would rather come to Akwa Ibom and let us argue in Akwa Ibom amongst ourselves. It is a different argument. If you now have to argue with El Rufai from Kaduna who produces 0, it's a different argument. If you now have to argue with this man from Sokoto, but come on, let's argue at home. I promise you, we will found a republic where those arguments will become moot. We can prove it, but I know we need to convince our people. The thing now, though, is not, we don't want anything anymore. We already have our resources, so nobody's giving us anything. You say if they give you, no, it's not being given. We already have it. It was taken from us. So what we have now is we want our our own republic. We just want whatever was taken. Let others go and form what they want to form. We will form a unity of nations. We'll trade with them. Who knows? We have more strength. Who knows? Maybe we're going to have many, many engineers from Benin who will come and work in Akwa Ibom. At that point, it will not matter. That engineer will not be in Akwa Ibom. He will train his children there. He will have his rights there. That's where we are. We are past this Nigerian old discussion.
And after 5 years, he becomes a citizen of Ibom Nation.
Well, that is going to be up to us, right? Because we're going to have a parliament. I am not going to make any decision as an individual. I'm not going to make a decision. Our people will democratically make the decision. If you ask my opinion is that these days, like Singapore, like some of these places, energy should be allowed. Educated people should be allowed to come in and build anywhere in this world. That is what we want. That's my advice. If our people say no, it's up to them. But I want a new nation. I'm tired of fighting with these people. And by the way, the last thing I wanted to say to you, I will ask any of our people involved in this, please subscribe. This is a channel, I can tell. I mean, Mazi has his own questions, but he's been objective and I think he's been fair in letting me express how the fact that Akwa Ibom people want Ibom People's Republic.
Thank you very much.
I will subscribe. When I'm subscribing the moment I get out myself.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. That's a very fine place to anchor it this evening. It's been a pleasure, and it's been interesting conversation. Again, I always believe in having a civil conversation, hear people out, and interrogate their viewpoint in order to deepen the conversation. And it's been an enriching conversation this evening, Prof. One-on-one with Professor Offiong Aqua. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to have you this evening. Thank you. And I hope, as events unfold, to have you on another day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mazi, and the best to you.
Thank you. So everyone, thank you very much. That's been my conversation with Professor Offiong Aqua. Like I keep saying, there is nothing else. These are things, our ideas cannot be censored. Very fantastic ideas. Ideas, they say, rule the world. Again, I've read all the comments some of you are making online. I see nothing wrong in someone debating and pushing his ideas forward. Now, if you have counter argument, match him argument by argument. Again, like I said, it has been a fantastic enriching, actually, more especially the pre-Civil War, the Civil War, and even the way forward that he has posited here. Again, everyone, if you haven't subscribed to this platform, you can do that on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. Kindly click the like button and also remember to click on the subscribe button. I am still Mazi, okay? Join me tomorrow again, 7 o'clock for Friday Hangout. I might be having an interesting guest also tomorrow. And sometime next week, I'll be having a very international pastor that many of you in Nigeria know. I wouldn't tell you yet, but I will let you guess who that pastor could be. It's going to be another bombastic. I promise you that. Bombastic. Anytime I have people here, I ask any question. I hold no back. There is nothing is off limit. We speak on every single thing here. It's been my pleasure to have you. And I say once more to every one of us, good evening and goodbye from here. I am Mazi Ezoke. Good night.